Or there was a little delay, but you notice that there's no echo today. Woo! I'm so glad. I hated that echo, but you're in the right place at the right time. Today, we are here with my classmate from the class of Berkeley High School, 1986, Miss Katrina McGregor. Oh, wait a minute. I turned it off, must be. My sound effect. Oh, I had no sound effects. Yeah. Hey, that's right. That's right. We got the Monk's Corner connection. The Monk's Corner. Let's try it again, Bob. We got the Monk's Corner connection as well as the New York connection. And Katrina, we're so glad to have you here with us today, my friend. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank God. I'm great. Doing really well.
Well, praise the Lord. I tell you what, if you look at all the girls in our class, we had Darlene, Barbara Mathis on with us the other night, which she'll be back for the basketball edition after the game tonight. And the ladies in our class don't age. Man, the guys, all of us, I look like Moses. You see all this gray? I look like Moses. Yeah, for real. I party Red Sea. But I mean, the women do not age whatsoever. They don't age. Yeah, these black don't crack. But we're here today, and we're here to talk about a serious subject today, and we're here to talk about domestic abuse. And Katrina is a domestic abuse survivor. We're so glad to have her on the show. You were here earlier in the week when we had Beth Humans as well as LaShondra Page, and Beth Humans and LaShondra Page really opened my eyes to some things about domestic abuse, as well as and LaShondra had she's been shot 7 times, right? And we praise God that we still have LaShondra Page with us. So without any further, I sounded like Porky Pig. Without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and we're going to play our promo video, and we're going to be back with my classmate, my good friend, Katrina. I want to keep calling you Hollis, but Katrina McGregor. So hold on for the promo, guys. Once again, we're back with my good friend, Katrina McGregor. And once again, Katrina, it's so good to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Just a couple fast facts about domestic abuse. About 1 in 3 women have been victims of severe physical violence. Half of all homeless women and children in the United States are fleeing from domestic violence by an intimate partner. In 60% to 80% of intimate partner homicides, no matter which partner was killed, the man physically beat the woman first. As many as 324,000 women each year experience intimate partner violence during their pregnancy. 72% of all murder suicides involve an intimate partner. 94% of the victims of these murder suicides are women. Intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all violent crime. And today we're going to be running two numbers concurrently through this show. One for the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and the other is going to be for My Sister's House Incorporated, an emergency shelter hotline. So we're going to definitely be running those two numbers in case there's anyone out there that does need these resources on today. And Katrina, what can you tell us? What is something that you can tell us that most people don't know about domestic abuse?
I think a lot of times the victim is embarrassed and they're embarrassed. They don't want to share their story because they're embarrassed of what others would think of them.
Embarrassing, and I can understand why it would be embarrassing, to be a grown woman, and to be beaten, by the man that you're supposed to be protecting you and loving you, and to be beaten by that person, and this is a very, very precarious situation to be put into. I can well understand that. Is anyone exempt, Katrina, from domestic abuse?
No. If you're in a relationship, you're not exempt. Any type of it can range from a high school couple on out. And you don't even have to be married to your partner. So it's just when one person feels as though they own the other person, and that they could do whatever they want to that person. And in my case, my abuser was a hero to someone else. He received a knife wound on his arm because he saw a man hurting a woman. So he jumped in and fought this man off of this woman and received a knife scar, but then, he became the abuser. And even men with daughters are still abusers. So, yeah.
And that's No, go ahead.
I don't know if there's really something that people don't know, but I think in the background of your head, that this person's not right for you. And we have to learn to follow and listen to that still voice. A lot of times we try to muffle it because this is what I wanted. This is what I've been wanting for so long. And you think, this is it. This is it. They know how to show themselves to be what you want. They know how to be nice, but they can also take off that mask and show who they really are. Your abusers, in some cases, or I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of times they are, and something you mentioned Monday, they're coming from a broken home. And when I say broken, I don't necessarily mean that their parents are not together, okay? But broken, something went wrong. Something went wrong, and they are hurting. And they may love you, but they don't know how to show love. And you cannot fix them. You cannot fix them. Don't put yourself in another way of looking at that. You buy a broke down car, and you sit in it. You occupy that car thinking that you can drive that car, but it's broken. You're not the mechanic. God is that mechanic. You're not the mechanic. You cannot fix that car and drive off because it's to the root. Okay. It's a spiritual thing. And in some cases, I think this is just me, that I think that they have let another spirit pilot their ship. You know, I listened to the young lady, not Lashandra, but the other young woman, when she was speaking. Yes, she was saying how she was the type of person you couldn't get over on her, and she would run her mouth and this, that, and the other. But then she realized that she couldn't do that with him because he would kill her. And that is something that other people will tell you, well, why didn't you throw grease on him or pour grits on him while he was sleeping? That's not the type of person I am. That is not the type of person that I am. And you are fighting the enemy in his playground. Okay. I'm not structured to do that. And it's really hard to fight someone that you spent so much time loving. And all of a sudden you have to turn that switch off. And now you have to pick up something and defend yourself. But the person that I try to defend myself against, other men were not willing to fight him. So, yeah. And we'll get into that when I get into my story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before you go any deeper, I just want to hit one point that you were mentioning. He defended a woman that was in distress, a damsel in distress, took a knife wound for the damsel in distress, disarmed the other man, was a hero, and ironically turned around to be your abuser.
Exactly. Yes.
And so these traits were always in him, but it just seems weird. I guess I just can't wrap my mind around, how he could see it on the outside, but then internally behind closed doors, he was the same thing.
Right. Yes. Oh, there's so much to tell. Oh my gosh.
Tell it all, child. Spill it all. Tell it all.
Are we ready?
We're ready. Go ahead and talk. Go ahead and tell me.
As we were talking earlier, you were saying that you're so quiet. You're like church mouse quiet. I'm like, yes, I was trained to be that way because of the type of environment that I was placed in. The church that I grew up in, I'm going to say the organization that I grew up in, because, I want to put a disclaimer there that I love God.
Yeah.
And I try to listen to God and follow after him. However, in growing up, I was in I would like to say like a cult-like environment. And as females, we were taught to be quiet. The men were the rulers, and, academic success was, on the back burner. You were taught that you came to church, you went to church, you listened to the apostle, and you were quiet as a female. You did not quote scriptures and all of that. We were muffled or muzzled. Okay. So, I had that for years. And so I go out to another state. I was in the Midwest. I had gotten was working on my master's degree out in the Midwest. And I still wanted to be in the service of the Lord, but I felt as though I needed to still remain in the type of organization that I grew up in. It was just a little bit looser than when I grew up in. We didn't have to wear the long dresses at that time in this organization. And so this was like August of 1997. I'm there, I'm enjoying the ministry, and this man approaches me, and I'm like, why is this guy trying to talk to me? He has a wedding ring on. Why is he trying to talk with me? Every Sunday morning, he would approach me with his daughter, and he'd have his father with him. And so finally, I found out later that he was just wearing the wedding ring. He was not married. So I decided I would be his friend, not his girlfriend. I was just going to be his friend. You know, I was very naive, very naive. You know, I even hanging out, even in grad school, I was very naive. You know, I was learning the world. Okay. And I was, some people call it rebellious stage too. You know, I was still being in church, but I was trying to get away from what I had here in South Carolina. But I still wanted to serve God, but I was trying to learn the world.
Right.
And so I'm with this guy as his friend, and he in turn had something else, another idea going on in his head that I was gonna be his wife. And so something that he did to me, okay, so I went out to his niece's birthday with him, like I'm his friend, that's it. And I can remember he came to my apartment. He goes, because he had his daughter and her little sister with him. So he came to my apartment and told his little girl to go outside. Something happened to me at that time that he did. I have some children in the room here, so
Okay.
So I was upset, and he started crying, and the tears, crocodile tears, and he goes, I am so sorry. I had went to prison for this. I was away in prison for this because of this same thing. And we think as females, we think that we can fix people. So here I am forgiving him, but I went to the man of God, and I told him what took place. And he said, well, you're going to get married. And I was
Wow.
like, I'm getting married. And eventually this young man told me, he goes, well, I did that to you because my mother said, if I were to do that to you, then the pastor would make us get married.
Oh my God.
And I was like, and he used his daughter at that time to get back to my apartment. She left her lip gloss. And so he was coming in to get her lip gloss, and he pushed his way in. And then that's when he went ahead, shut the door, and yeah. So my mother said, no, you don't have to marry this guy. The school nurse, because I was still in grad school, said, no, do not do that. All of my friends that were in grad school with me were saying, no, don't do that. And here I was still naive, and I was thinking, well, I want to serve God. And this man was God's person here on earth, and I needed to listen to him because I was so caught up in religion, not a relationship, but religion. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not bitter, because God allows things to happen. He does allow things to happen for a reason. And I just thank God that he got me through this. So fast forward, we enter into this relationship. And when people, something I'm going to tell you, when people tell you about themselves and it sounds weird and strange, believe them. They're telling you the truth. Okay. Sometimes when people tell us stuff, we just think, okay, you gotta be, yeah, you're not like that. No, they are. They're telling you the truth. Okay. They may be laughing about it, but they're telling you the truth. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the end, and then I'll just show you how we got to that. The last straw, the straw that broke the camel's back was in February of 2012. I was teaching at a local school, was doing really well there. However, that evening or that morning, he was mad. I don't know what he was mad about. He had thrown my case that had my laptop in it and everything. And the two older kids were at school, but the baby was upstairs. And he had already hit me in my face. So I went to work with a messed up eye, and I was wearing sunglasses. This was conference time, parent teacher conferences. And I was very devoted to my job. So I went there, had the conference, and then I spoke with my supervisor, showed him what my face looked like. And I also, how else? I'm trying to think back because this was a while ago. I called his sister and I asked her, I said, what should I do? And she told me, well, he is not going to hurt the baby. But she goes, because we were living in their dad's house, we were his dad's caretaker. And she said, but if he hurts dad, I'm going to have to take him out. She was the gun toter, that whole family, they were all gun toters, and she goes, if he does something to dad, I'm going to have to take him out. So she said, but he's not going to hurt the baby, but the other two, you may want them to come to your job. And so I called their school and told them to come to the job to meet me and we'll come home together. So we got home that night and he was sitting in his orange hoodie in the dark. He's just sitting there. And he goes, I have some chicken here. And I'm just like, this guy can't cook. I'm not going to eat the chicken. So I said, no, thank you. And so I go upstairs to our room and he comes in and he starts picking a fight immediately. So I'm getting my cell phone, my little cell phone, and I'm trying to call a friend, which was not somebody from the church, because at this point, the church, that's another thing. They didn't want us talking to a lot of outside people. But I had some teachers that I worked with that I confided in. And so I told her, I said, I was trying to call one of them and he took my phone, threw it, said, and he was angry, said, I'm not going to jail. I'm not going back to jail again. So, just like I wasn't calling the cops. I was trying to call, you said I wasn't staying here tonight. So I'm trying to call somebody so that I can go. We have snow on the ground. This is the winter. February in this place in Midwest is cold. So, so my phone is taken away now. He's yelling at my oldest son. My daughter, of course, slips out and she goes and she gets her grandfather's phone. She just had she had a way of getting it. She got it from him. So my 3-year-old was not talking at the time. He was delayed. He's on the bed. And so he left me there for a while. Then he came back. And this time he took his boot and hit me in the head. The work boots, those big yellow work boots. He hit me in the head with it. And now he proceeds to get on top of me with his knees in my chest. And he's holding me by my throat and he's telling me, I ought to kill you. I ought to kill you. I can kill you, And he's going on in this rage. And all I could think about, God, I don't want to die here. I don't want to die here. So he lets me go. He goes, well, I should just push you out the window. We were on the second story above the basement area. So that would have been a bad fall. But he let me go and he left the room. And he told his daughter, get in there, which was my daughter. He told my daughter, get in there with your mother and take care of your mother. So my daughter goes and she hands me her grandfather's cell phone and she says, Mom, call the cops now. Call them now. So I'm calling the cops and Cornell, I feel as though I'm on a television movie. Because I'm in the dark. He had the lights turned out. I'm in the dark and I'm like, please, please come. And they're used to coming to the residents, okay? Because they were always in trouble. They're used to coming to that resident. And I'm whispering, please come, please. He's hurting me, this, that, and the other. And I hung up. And then he comes back in. And so my daughter, she remembers, she goes, Ma, she said, God did not allow him to see the phone. The phone was there and somehow the phone did not ring. Usually around that time at night, a lot of the siblings would call, his siblings would call to check on their father because they start coming out at night to the house and they sit down with their father downstairs and everybody's just there having a good time while we're upstairs. And so nobody called. And And my daughter goes, she says, Dad, I think Dad saw the phone, but he didn't say anything. At this point, he's telling me to get up. You're leaving here. So I had my slip on, and a lot of us, when we like to wear our wigs, because we think it makes us look gorgeous or whatever. So he wants to take away he wants to make me feel degraded. So he pulls my wig off, and he's like, "But you're not going. You're getting out of here." And I'm in my slip. Now, mind you, any other time I'm walking in my slip, he's like, keep your clothes, put something on because my brother's downstairs, my dad or whatever. This time he's sending me downstairs like this into the snow. And so my son said, Dad, can I put a coat on Mom? And as soon as my son said that, someone's knocking on the door, and it was the police.
Thank God.
And yeah, thank God. You're right. My baby was still upstairs, my 3-year-old that wasn't talking. My father-in-law at the time was sitting in his chair. He used to say, leave that woman alone, leave her alone. We did not lock doors because nobody was coming up in there because they knew him and they knew the family. So we had a kitchen door where they could leave out. There was the big pantry door where someone can leave out, and then there was the living room door. The cops were at all the doors. And they came in through the pantry door because he did not want to open the living room door where I was closest to. They came in. He decided to run up the stairs. I don't know why he was running up the stairs, because he could have run out any of the doors. But he ran up the stairs, and I told him, I said, I have a baby up there. And you could hear as they use what do you call it? The sting gun? What do you call
Taser?
that? The taser. They tasered him as he's running upstairs. You heard him fall, and you heard that breath. And, they're getting him out. And his father had the audacity to ask him, can she stay here tonight? He didn't have to do that because I was leaving.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes. So my kids and I and I think that happened February 25th. We got out of there February 28th. We were already on the road back to South Carolina. One of the sister-in-laws said that she heard me screaming, so she had to leave. She couldn't take it anymore. She instead of calling help for it, she didn't do that. So that was the stick that broke the camel's back. Okay. Now going back, what got me to that? And I told you, what he did, and I thought that meant, oh my gosh, he just adored me so much. It has nothing to do with love. It has nothing to do with adoration. That has to do with control. When a person is out of control and they're hurting. This person, so as of August 1997, we met. November 8th, 1997, we were married. I wanted to wait a whole year, but the pastor said, no, let's get it over with. So we did. I was married into, and I always wanted to be into a big family because for 16 years, I was an only child. My mom had a baby when I was 16. That baby passed away, and then she had a baby when I was 18. So for that amount of time, I was an only child, and I enjoyed being around big families. And so he came from a family of 11 children. Both parents were alcoholics at one point, and he was the exact middle child. There were a whole bunch of strange things going on with this family. The mom told me that she would go to jail just to get away from her kids.
Wow.
Yeah, and when you hear that, you think, oh, you're just so funny. Yeah, she meant it. Okay. When I see Tyler Perry act out Medea, I don't think it's that funny because it reminds me of her. She asked me when I became a part of the family, do you need a gun? And he said no, he didn't want me having a gun because he wasn't supposed to have a gun because he was a convict, ex-convict. And the type of convict that he was, he couldn't just move anywhere. That's why I was telling you about sex offenders. You know, he was not my dream guy. I got the red flag. One red flag, a distant relative of his called me one night and said, I'm letting you know, don't marry this guy. I've heard about him in prison, what he does in prison. Don't marry him. I called the pastor and he said, don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. My mother cried. She said, please do not marry this man. I mean, she cried. And so I told my pastor, he goes, well, look at your mother's marriage. You know, he had an answer for everything. And because I looked up to him, not keeping my eyes on God, I went through with it. And there was no one in my family that came to my wedding but my mother. His family, that was a whole totally different ball game. They were there, but they were spectators. There was a lot I went through as far as the family, you know, social emotional abuse. You know, the mother was supposed to be watching our two older children, because at this point I had two children after we got married or whatever. And, you know, they put my babies in, not in the car seat, but just in the regular seat. They were little babies. And it's like they treated my babies different, you know, because if you the way the mother told me, her daughter's children, she know are her grandkids. Her son's children, yeah. Another red flag, I was his second wife. The first wife, the marriage was annulled immediately because, you know, he tried to kill her. I found this out later. He had a daughter, not from a previous marriage, but from a previous relationship in high school, and he and her could not get along. They fought. Again, I wasn't that type of person. Now, I'm gonna tell you, when we first got married, he was a nice guy. He was a nice guy, Cornell. You know, I didn't have roses. I didn't go out to dinner. You know, he tried to make a home for us. We had an older home, and you know, he was in church because when you get out of prison, you have religion. You know,
right. You know Jesus, then you had nothing else to do.
Yes. And so he was a fairly good guy, but he would say whatever was on his mind in front of people. And he's the type of person, this is my mouth. So, you know, what are you going to do? So other red flags that would happen, like when I had the first child. No, before I had that child, when I was carrying a baby, you know, I was falling behind with the housework or whatever, and he would yell, and I'm just like, I'm not used to people yelling at me, and just at the top of his voice, you know, he would go from high to 10, just being in a rage, and you know, I would curl up in my ball, like, what in the world is going on? You know, I'm not trying to fight you. What is going on? And of course, we're back to, okay. I like shopping. I make my own money. I would go into the store, and my mother wasn't there. So I would talk to other people in the store like, oh my gosh, yes, I am having a baby. Yeah. And you know, this is the kind of bottle that I use, blah, blah, blah. And other women would respond back. And we just, you know, how you chit chat with people in the store.
Right.
Why are you talking to them? Why are you talking to them? Because, you know, he did not want me talking to people in the store. He didn't mind me listening to his mother, and he would take advice from his sisters and from his aunts. Had to listen to them. But anybody else, no. I saw that his mother had control. She would have in her living room all of these pictures of all of her children hanging from the ceiling. And you knew when she was mad at them, she'd have their picture turned around. So she had a sense of control. She had tight control over all of them. And she would say stuff to him like, when a woman comes from the hospital after having a baby, you're supposed to wait before you have relations,
Right.
And that didn't happen. So now I have 2 kids that are going to be the same age for about a month or so.
Wow.
And so when that was going on, his mother and sister said something, she's going to die, And so he was concerned. He was so concerned that I was going to die or whatever. He always listened to them. So fast forward, the doctor told him, let's give her a break, blah, blah, blah. And God gave me a break. You won't believe how long a break I had. We'll just go on. So anyway, fast forward to when the kids are like 2 and 3. My oldest was coughing. He just kept coughing. And I got up and and his dad wanted to give him a mint. I said, well, let him sit up with the mint. You don't lay down and suck on a mint because you're going to choke.
Right.
He became angry with the child and he became angry with me. So he took a belt because he was going to beat my child. I was like, no, you cannot spank a child because they're coughing and they won't. And I don't want him to lay down. So he hit me in the face with this belt. And it's funny because I had not a scar on my face. God is such a protector. I had not a scar on my face. I fell down while I got knocked down and I couldn't move. I later found out I hurt my left leg. And so he called my mother to let my mother know that he goes, I'm going to hurt your daughter. I'm tired of her. I'm going to hurt your daughter. My mother is way here in South Carolina. She's panicking, going like, what in the world? And so he gives me the phone and he leaves the house. And I say, I told my mom, I said, Ma, hang up. I'm good. I couldn't move, Colonel. I couldn't move at that time. Now, his daughter from, his previous relationship was downstairs. She, at this time, was in high school. She did not move. She didn't hear anything. I don't know how she didn't hear anything. So I called the cops. The cops immediately got the kids and I out. And I was in a shelter with the kids. We were in a shelter for some time, and the pastor told me that I would have to drop the charges on my husband.
Yeah.
My mother and stepfather called to find out where I was. He hung up on them. But yet he talked to my sister-in-law. Now, mind you, my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law were good at giving a lot of money to the church. So he talked to them. They didn't need to know where I was. I was hiding from their brother. I ended up wearing a blood-soaked boot because of what he did to my leg. My principal was an awesome guy. I was able to continue working. He had my children. My children were in Montessori education. For me, it was very important. I think my kids were like 3 and 4 at that time because they were moved from the Montessori school into the school where I was working at. So they not unless they were 4 and 5. There's so many instances with this guy. So I just kind of started thinking. And so, that's what I learned, that when I dropped the charge when I met with the detective, she told me, she said that it takes a woman 9 times leaving 9 times before they could leave for good. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that. So, don't be embarrassed that you dropped the charges and that kind of thing. So, I ended up going back home, but now I just started thinking, the rotors started working, I'm like, wow, this guy is something else. So we left that first time. So I noticed he was being really nice, Cornell. He was being really nice, but every now and then you'd hear that in his voice where that anger would just come up out of nowhere. It's like, what in the world? So at this point, I started with a plan. And I would get all the stuff that the children's old clothes that they couldn't wear, the baby clothes that they couldn't wear. I would wash those and put them in a garbage bag. And I had those sent to my sister's house. And then I had another, and that's what I told them what I was doing with clothes. I said, I'm trying to give these clothes away. But I was also washing our current clothes, putting them in bags, and I was taking them to the school and giving them to another teacher. And she was putting them in her garage for me because I was making my escape plan. And in the meantime, I was also looking for an apartment in the town over. So this would go on, and he didn't know a thing, his sister would tell me one time, she told me, why don't you ever just fight him back? Now I'm going to tell you about that one. He was the sixth child in this family. There are 5 older than him and 5 younger than him. His brother, one of his brothers used to beat him up all the time when they were little. But that brother became an alcoholic, so he couldn't fight him as much anymore. But this guy, my ex-husband, was a fighter, to the point that he was known for fighting. He was known in prison for fighting, and he was known in our neighborhood for fighting. A parent approached me and said, oh, okay, so you're McGregor. Okay, so which one are you married to? So I told him. He goes, oh, I see. We got an understanding. We got another back off. Because that one, he was strong and he was very aggressive. You didn't talk about their mother. He didn't care. He was beat up by the cops over his mother. He didn't care. One of his friends shared with me when they were in prison, he goes, 5 guys tried to attack him and he was good with it. Okay. So this is the type of guy, his sister is telling me, why don't you fight back? Now, mind you, she and her husband would fight and break up their house. They were known for fighting. And he was creme de la creme at the top for that. But they want me to fight him. Now, mind you, I told you when the straw that broke the camel's back, when she was saying, if he does something to Dad, I'm going to have to take him out because there's no one there that can control him. So she was going to shoot him. In his first marriage, his mother did a drive-by and shot the house. Yes. So this is what I was dealing with. And so when I tell people, they're kind of like, girl, you crazy. No, this is stuff that actually happened. And so when we would go to parties, like family parties, fights would break out. They would be bloody. They knock down, drag out fights. The family members, these are family members. You didn't get in it. You let them fight. So that's where all this aggression was coming from. Even when one of the sisters was sharing with me how one of the nephews, they had to take out an electric saw that he had, because they were all fighting. There's so much violence. I remember one time my two older ones went with their dad to see their auntie, and a fight broke out. And the older sister grabbed my little girl to protect her, but my son, his uncle fell on him because all these big men were fighting. But I'm supposed to fight back. Don't call the cops, just fight back. So Cornell, I went ahead and I was separated from my husband because he started again. And this time I had a plan. I went on with my plan. He was left. He left that day. He came home to an empty house. I took the furniture. I had 2 men in the truck, come pick up the furniture, move it into my new apartment, and the stuff that was in that one teacher's garage, we moved it in and everything. You know, Pastor told me I needed to go back to my husband.
What?
You're not going to ever be able to get married again.
He's crazy.
Let's talk about it. The family, they decided, because like I just wanted a new house. So I decided I was going to buy a house. And but no, his dad worked on houses and they never worked on the house that we were living in. So now his dad's saying, okay, he's finished with his youngest daughter's house. He's going to work on this house for us. So, you know, I gave them money to get the materials for the house. And so the house, they started renovations in the bathroom. Here I am, you know, I'm going to reconciliate with this guy. He leaves he came to my house. He left some drug paraphernalia in my house. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the person I'm trying to get back with. But little did I know, he wasn't interested in getting back into the relationship. He was ready to leave. So his sister told me, we're coming to get the deed to the house. We're taking the house back. People are telling me, don't let them take the house from you. Now, mind you, I had no other relatives in this state. It was just me against all of them. Okay. So Cornell, whenever they would get mad, like if he and I were mad at each other, like one day his aunt called, she curses you out and she goes, let me speak to my nephew. She didn't want to speak to me. Doesn't know what happened between the two of us, but you know, she's on his side automatically. This is what I had to deal with. Something I forgot to tell you, when I was first pregnant with my oldest child, his mother wanted to throw a shower for me, but she wanted to have someone take stuff off of my porch. And I said, that's my stuff. He wanted me to apologize to his mother for saying that. So at that time, I didn't have a cell phone, but I went to the local Family Dollar and I called my mom and let her know what was going on. So he gets me on the street and he's pulling me down the street. I'm big and 8 months pregnant. He's pulling me down the street, pulling me to go and apologize to his mother for saying what I said. And his mother's like, you know, you go back to where you came from. All this, you know, and so it was a whole family thing that I was dealing with, not just him. It was the family as well. There's so many stories. It's just funny. But after we were separated the second time, you know, I did buy a house because they came and got that house. His family, they took the house, the mother and the two daughters, and that was another showdown. But God allowed me to get a house. But I was feeling for my husband again. I wanted my husband back. And, you know, according to the pastor, you're not going to be able to get married to anybody else. So just call him. And yes, God had already removed this man out of my life. Here I go back again. So I'm going to call him. He refused to talk to me because now he had another woman and he was living with his daughter. His daughter now, it was grown and she had her own family. So he and his girlfriend were living there. And I was like, so I got my husband back. I got him talking because Pat said, just talk to him, make him keep calling him until he talks to you. And he did. And so he came back, but he was messed up. He was really messed up when he got back. So we got back together, but he had to go into rehab, drug rehabs in another. So he was moved to another state to do that. I was always making visits to the prison, renting cars to drive all the way out into the country to visit him in prison. And now he's in rehab and whatever. Used to take my car and go on these high-speed chases from the police. One of my vans were totaled. Yeah. Just so much. And it's just so much. But I'm so grateful to God because God is such a keeper. But anyway, so we got back together and we had a third child. By this time now he has a drug problem. I was not aware of the fact that he had a drug problem. There were little hints here and there, but I was naive. So I'm at work and he's the stay-at-home dad with our baby. And I found out later on that DSS went ahead and they talked to my two older kids because someone said that this guy is smoking, doing his drug problem in front of the children. So we got through that. My children were never taken from me, thank God, because I was not aware of all of this. So we're back together. And now we eventually move into his father's house. There were several other stories, but like I said, I shared with you the final straw, and like I told that young lady that they don't get away. They don't get away. He did not get away. When my children and I made it here to South Carolina on that fateful week of what happened, he was in prison for a while. He just went to jail because an officer told me they're going to let him out. So, if I wanted to be protected, he says, just why are you here? Just leave. And so we did leave. But he is now in a state in the West and he may have schizophrenia. He now goes as a woman.
Wow.
And he's really torn down. The guy that was so strong, my daughter was telling me because she went to visit him. She went to find him. This woman just pushed him over. It was like nothing. He totally messed up. Like I said, they don't get away. I pray for him. I was in that marriage for 23 years as of last year. I was separated from him for a total of 8 years straight. But in and out of that marriage, I would visit him in prison. We were together, we were not together. I feel for him because of what he went through as a child, what he went through as a teenager, and how he tried to seek vengeance on the person that damaged him. And then how he tried to damage me. There's so much more that I could share, but I would like to do that in a book eventually someday. Because what the enemy meant for evil, God meant it for my good. Because if this didn't happen, I would not know how great God can be and how God can deliver you out of anything. Like I told you, this man wanted to kill me. The face he had gorgeous eyes. He had light eyes. They weren't hazel, just a little lighter brown. I just always thought he had just such beautiful eyes. But the night that he threatened to kill me. It's like something was over his face, Cornell. Like there was hate. We had just went to the movies like a day before that, and then all of a sudden, where's this hate coming from? One more thing I wanted to share with you.
Share as much as you want.
As this progressed, as time started progressing, he started being angry with my oldest son, and my oldest son needed him. But he kept being angry with him, and he didn't like how my daughter and I were shopping. Now, his father told me, he said, this woman makes her own money, and she should be able to spend her money the way she wants to. Now, he would work at night, going door to door to people's homes. They had some kind of business where they get money from people like that. Mm-hmm. And so he would give me money too, as long as he could get his beer and drinks or whatever he wanted to get, and his smokes or whatever, he would do that. And then he'd give me money, and then he'd sit out in the backyard, and, and I didn't have a problem with that. That's what you do. That's what you do. But I remember my daughter and I, we went shopping, and for some reason, he was so mad at me. He pushed me down and knocked me back. There I went falling to the ground, and I couldn't hold my balance. And he thought it was funny. He's like, I thought you were getting ready to hit me. That's why I did that. Yeah, he thought that was funny. And whenever his father would tell him to leave that girl alone, he would say, this is my wife. I can do with her what I want. His brother also lived in the house with us. His brother lived in the basement apartment, and his brother, I remember on that day of, his brother ran upstairs and he was just like, what are you doing? He's like, bleepity bleep, this is my wife. You go about your business. And of course, his little brother humbly went back downstairs. Yeah. I just came to check on dad. That's all. I just came to check on dad. Right. Yeah. Now, she can, whatever, you do whatever you want to your wife. You're right. So I feel for him, and I pray for him. There's no longer that romantic love. It's that, the love that God gives us for our fellow brethren. I pray that God will eventually save his soul, because he is my children's father. But right now, like I told you, they don't get away, whether it's in this lifetime or the next. God is a fair and just God. Amen. It just so happened that God's taking care of him right now, because he knew God. He used to be in church. They grew up in church, and yeah. But yeah, that's my story. That is my story. And, I thank God when I came here, we were in a house for a while, my kids and I. There was a church where they took care of my vehicle until I was able to get another vehicle. I've gotten 2 new vehicles since I've been here in South Carolina, which I was not able to do when I was in the Midwest. And I'm just like, look at you, God. You continue to take care of me. He continues to take care of me. And I praise him for that. And I hope that this story, and I know my story is in so many circles or whatever, but I pray that it educates young women that you cannot fix these men. And even if you're a man that is in an abusive situation, you cannot fix that person. That's something God is going to have to do. And like the lady said on Monday, love, that's not love. A lot of times they have a feeling, but they don't know how to love you. They don't. But they do know how to apologize. They'll come back and apologize. Like this guy, he was mad because you messed up my family. You took my kids away. You messed my family up. No, I didn't do that. You did that. And I'm not saying that I was the perfect wife, Cornell. I'm not, We all have, our skeletons in the closet. I didn't cheat on him or anything like that, but I had did nothing to deserve how he treated me. And women need to know, which however these people are treating you, you didn't do anything to deserve that. I gave him several times, and he did not need any of those. I thought that I could correct the relationship, and I listened to man. And now my thing is, no, we're listening to God, because it's not his will that any should perish. God's not going to lead you into destruction. I wasn't listening, but like the Hebrew brothers, when they found themselves in that situation, God protected them. Okay. God protected me. I was able to get out of my contract that I was in as a teacher with that district. They told me I could come back at any time. Usually, if you're in the contract, there are repercussions, and they saw my face. I was like, no. I'm fortunate that my injuries were not life-threatening. I'm fortunate that he didn't go through with what he was saying that he was doing. Fortunate that he didn't hurt our children, because there were times when my daughter would talk back to him. She was like, "Don't hit my mother." And he would pop her upside the head. And so, I thank God for having a strong daughter. She's very strong, and so, women and men need to teach and train their daughters and their sons. If you find that a person is abusive, if you see any red flag, get out. Get out. Don't wait to see if they're going to do something else. And if it hurts your heart will be all right. You will be all right. Yes.
Trina, Mitchell Peace Joy says, thank you for sharing your story. And Trina, I just have to just say, your story is just so, it's a tear jerker, it's a heart jerker. You're such a hero. You're such a hero, and you smile about it and you laugh about some things, and some things you said were so riveting, that it has all the makings of just like you said, you had to pinch yourself and say, am I really living this? What I find most appalling is how the church and the pastor were such a great enabler of this monster. And
Yeah.
then, to me, I find that appalling. And what erroneous leadership. And, where he was able to intervene and give you good, sound advice, to head for the hills, to get out of this thing, to run. He kept pushing you back towards the hurt and the harm. And that, to me, I just can't, that to me, that leaves me, I'm lost for words on that. But people like, and I remember we grew up together, and you were saved, growing up. A lot of us went to church, but we wasn't all saved. And you grew up in the class of 86, and girl, stay saved in that class. And I remember the long skirts and everything. And I said, yeah, Trina ain't about that life. And I was about that life. And I can say Myra Haney and Laura Haney, they used to be preachers too. They'd be talking to me about the Lord, and Cornell Johnson, you better get your life together. And then over there, Trina was going to church, and we just had a lot of people in our class that you were saved. And but the thing is that to be under such erroneous leadership, and I think that there's a lot of people that are in bad situations, and these people are giving them some bad advice. And thank God for God's glory and intervention that you weren't harmed, but that God was putting you in harm's way.
Yes. Yes. He even told me if he ever hits you, another red flag, if he ever hits you, I'm going to go ahead and pay for your divorce. That came up. He goes, I lied.
And he just told you he lied.
Yeah.
He need a brick.
He's passed away now.
Okay,
And,
well,
and people loved him. And it's like there's a seesaw of emotions with me and how I feel about him. There are times when I remember things that this person did for me, and my emotions are like, yeah, I just love it, the man of God. And then I think about other things. I'm like, oh, no, no, you didn't, you were not looking out for my best interest. So it goes back and forth. And I know he's human, but so that kind of helps me now when, as far as church is concerned, I am not your traditional churchgoer. I don't want to listen to you tell me what to do. I want to hear God.
absolutely.
And for so long, Cornell, I've listened to what men said. Okay, you can't wear jewelry, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't, there was always these no's.
Right.
No, 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 no. You can't do this. Education, you can't have that either. But God provided the way for me to do that. And so I started realizing, honey, you're going to have to start listening to God. You're going to have to develop a relationship with him, because what I had was church membership. I was that good girl, the goody two shoes. The devil don't care about that, because he will put you in situations to destroy you. But God knew my heart. He knew my heart. And I thought that that's how you knew God, by listening to the pastor. And I'm not telling people to be rebellious towards their pastor. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying you have to make sure you're developing a relationship with him so that you can hear and learn to pick the meat out from the bones. Because a lot of times pastors are trying to build churches. They're trying to get these big organizations. They're trying to increase their organization and in the guise of spreading the gospel. There was a time when the parson was all about doing God's business, but now it's almost like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a pastor one day, because you see how Uncle so-and-so is, he has a mega church and this, that, and the other. It's our system. So, like I said, I love the Lord, but you may see me and think, what in the world is she doing now? Yep. I'm trying to listen for God. I'm not trying to follow your religion anymore, So, yeah.
I like the new Trina. I like the new Trina. I do. And I'm the ghetto rap, because I tell you, I don't go along with a lot of stuff. I don't fit in a lot of circles. And the only thing I should be able to ever tell you is confirm something that God has already told you, because there's nothing wrong with your spiritual phone. So how come I'm getting a word from the Lord for you that you can't get yourself? And
Exactly.
and these people, that's a form of control. And just as that guy was exerting using control over you and stripping you of your identity and trying to make you subservient, almost a geisha, little geisha wife, and I was reading last night about how I think where they'll make you feel like a servant, under them, and they're the master, and whatever they say goes, and this is what you do. And I didn't come from that kind of family and that kind of background. I didn't come from that kind of dysfunction. And so I come from a family of strong women. You know, my aunt got a 9mm in her pocketbook, 10-4. Yeah, I'm telling you, I was putting wood on my grandmama porch one night, and my aunt came out there with the with her 9, and I had to holler. I said, "Hey, this is Cornell." You know, so I'm telling you, you know,
Yes.
there's some strong women, and the guys ain't no joke either. But the thing is that we don't go around beating women up, and I just, it's a serious thing. It's a serious thing because there's lots of people that's going through it. And Trina, what would you say, Katrina, to a woman that's stuck in a relationship like this, a volatile situation today, that feels that she's stuck because of finances, stuck because of her emotions, or stuck because she thinks it's her fault that she's getting these beatings?
Okay. Number one, it's not your fault. Slavery ended in 1865. At least Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1865, and it was 1868 in June for Juneteenth. You know, yeah. Okay, so slavery's been gone. You know, and then Jesus Christ also shed his blood for all. You know, so he paid the price for us. You are not their property. Okay. Do not even inform them of what you're doing. Ask God to open up doors for you to help you escape. Because like I told you, I was there and I was like, Lord, I don't want to die. I don't want to die here. God hears your prayers. He hears them. Okay, so don't be afraid to talk to God. But don't stay, because if you stay, your kids are going to learn that behavior and they're going to think it's correct. No matter how abusive it is, they're going to think that it's correct, because children and people, we learn by doing, not always by what you say. We learn by doing. And if you feel as though you cannot get out because of finances, again, don't let them know that you're leaving. Start making your phone calls, especially to the National Domestic Voice Violence Hotline. I called the police department, and they can get you in touch with the people that you need to get in touch with. I didn't say, but I also had a no contact order out against him. The one coming from the state where I was at, it was for 5 years. I think here in South Carolina, it's only 3, but for there, it was 5 years. And so I just transferred over here. And my family's like, he's not coming here. He couldn't, because he was also a sex offender. And wherever he goes, he has to be registered. And here in South Carolina, he could only come here for like 3 days, and then he would have to leave. So my family like, he's not coming. Don't worry about that. No, somehow he was afraid of Troy for some reason. I don't know what it was about Troy that he was afraid of. You know Troy Alston.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it is about Troy. I was like,
Wall Street. Listen, he's not coming here.
Okay.
He's not coming here. I'm telling you right now. But the drive-by shooting mama, I was like, good God.
Well, see, that was the thing. It was
have mercy.
I used to call it the McGregor compound, because there was an instance where someone else was coming. They thought was going to have his gun. And so all the kids had to be transferred to my brother-in-law's up in his house in hiding, because the other brothers, they were going to come out because they were going to have a shootout with another family, and that was supposed to come. Man, you don't believe there was. And I remember walking around the compound like, in the name of Jesus, hallelujah, just plead the blood. And they looked at me like, I can't believe she's doing that. Nobody ever came with the guns. Okay.
Praise the Lord.
But I'm telling you, don't ever let them know that you're leaving. Don't let them know, because now if they don't want you to leave, you're not going to leave. So you don't let them know that you want to leave. You talk with people, get it out that what's going on, people that you can confide in. And again, National Domestic Violence Hotline. For me, when it first happened to me, when they called my sister's house and they took me to this undisclosed location I got in with these people, and I learned what to do next. You know, I had to take my 2 babies with me and come up with what I needed for that first time that I went out. But the second time, I had my plan. Get yourself a plan. If you have to go to if you have to just kind of hide money for so many weeks, do what you have to do. Don't tell your kids what you're doing. Don't tell them, because they're little, they're young. They're going to go back and tell that other parent, because they love the other parent. They love that person, and that's understandable, you know? So don't tell them. You can always sign up with DSS, because when I got here, I needed help. You know, I didn't get a job immediately. I got here in February. I ended up with a job I signed up with DSS. They said, oh, you're going to get a job quickly. And I did. By June or July of that same year, I was signed up with the school district here and was ready to go. Because my supervisors gave me a very good recommendation, referral, and all that kind of thing. But if you have to work at McDonald's, Burger King, wherever you have to work, it is better to do that than to stay with that person. Again, do not let them know that you're leaving. When you get enough money and to get on the road, just get on the road. I got here with my 3-year-old and my other 2. I mean, we kept driving. I went past the turnoff for South Carolina. I think we ended up in Alabama. I was fleeing. We had to turn around. I can laugh now, but
Thank God you can laugh now.
And I want to help other women, because if you let them know that you're trying to leave, then that gives them time to come up with a plan to stop you. I just remember another young lady in church. She and her husband and the little kids would sit in front of us. They're a cute little family. I had seen them that Saturday at the mall, cute little family. Sunday, I found out he shot her in front of the little girls and killed her.
Oh, God.
Didn't know that there was any abuse going on. They know how to pretend when they're outside among other people. If you have to sneak out, do it. Don't stay. But again, don't alert them. Don't let their family know. I don't care how close you are to certain relatives, because some relatives can't hold water. Don't let people know. Tell the police or whomever, domestic hotline, I need to get out and I need to do it in a hurry. When the detectives and all came to rescue me and my kids, like I said, I was whispering on the phone, because he already said, I'm not going back to jail. Just letting you know that, you know. And it's so sad, Cornell, because when you love a person and you open up to them physically, and you know how it is when you're with your significant other, when that person is passionately making supposedly love to you, and you don't think that they can do any harm, that they are going to protect you. Now this is the person that wants to take your life. They all of a sudden hate you for whatever reason. And you don't always know what it is. They could be envious of you. I don't know if he wanted to be a woman like me at that time and was envious of what he saw. I don't know if he wanted to get out of the marriage and just felt like he had to kill me. I don't know what it was. I mean, he was the one that said, I don't believe in divorce. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, look, his mother and father, they stay together until death. They're still together. And he has this big family. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You don't know what's going on in those families. But again, don't let them know that you're leaving. Yeah.
Thank you, Trina. Sometimes death is the best exit. That you said the mother and father stayed together. Yeah, what it says in the Bible. Some people looking for death, they can't find it.
Okay. Oh, and you know what? She did die.
Oh God,
Yeah.
forgive me. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. The
No,
lady that did the one that did the drive-by shooting, she died.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She showed herself to me in some ways. Mm. That's another story. That's part of my book. One of these days I have to sit down and write a book about all this stuff.
You have to write a book. You have to write a book. This is, and I will have you back on the show because I'm gonna have you back on the show with Lashandra Page as well as Beth Humans and some other therapists are gonna be coming back on the show, and we're gonna have another forum. But I told you my platform is your platform.
Okay. Cornell,
Mhm.
something that came up when Lashandra was on. I believe I met Lashandra back, and I couldn't say at the time, but there was that McDonald's gospel showcase, and I wanted to ask her that, was she there in a wheelchair, like she had just gotten out of the hospital? Because they talked about a woman that had been through this, and that I was kind of new to the state, like maybe 2 or 3 years at that point, and she was such an inspiration. And I was like, gosh, I went through that same thing, but thank God he didn't shoot me. But I was like, I'm thinking that's the same lady. So I just
It,
thought that was interesting. Yeah.
it could be. It
Mm-hmm.
could be, and we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out, and definitely make that connection, Trina. But yeah, that would be uncanny if you have met Lashandra. She's a very strong woman, as well as Beth is, as well as you are. Uh, a hero, a hero. I'm telling you, a hero in my book. Katrina, my last question to you today is, what would you say about your journey so far?
Um, I thank God I have the opportunity to get my story out. And I thank God that He has me in hiding right now. And you're saying, what do you mean? You know, um, this man told me, he goes, no man will ever want you. He said, you were stupid to marry me, this, that, and the other. And, that is the devil. The devil was trying to take me out. And I'm still here by the grace of God. I'm still standing. And I continue to hold on to God's unchanging hand. A lot of the terminology that church folks used seem to be cliche
Right.
nowadays. But for me, I'm like, I'm living this. This is a part of my journey. You know, He will keep you and He will never forsake you. I feel those songs, fill my cup, Lord. Okay. Quench this thirst, and so I tell women and anybody, God will quench that thirst for you. I had this thing, I love men, and God rightly so, I'm female.
Right. Right.
you know,
Right.
but God is a keeper. God is a keeper. I thank God that no man can come up in here and say that I was his doormat or anything like that.
Amen.
God will keep you. Women, God will keep you if you want to be kept. He will keep you. He will keep you, your mind. Oh my gosh. The flesh will say, look at this and that one. She got this and she got that. You don't know what they're going through. And God does what He wants in His own time. He allowed that to happen. And I pray that He gets the glory in my journey. When He's ready to bless me for my next chapter, then He'll do that. but everything has to be done in time. And I'm preaching to myself right now.
You preaching. Go ahead and preach, Rev.
Everything has to be done in time. Because
Right.
if you take that watermelon off the vine before it's time, it's like it ain't gonna taste good at all.
No.
You see the watermelon, but it's not. You open it up, it's not gonna taste like anything. And I'm on my journey, and I thank God for this journey. And I don't want to rush anything. Again, I always look to the left and I look to the right, like, oh my gosh, look what you. No, keep your eyes focused on God. Keep it focused on God. In due time, He will bless. I have so many things here. Like I have this red flower pot. I have a testimony around that flower pot. My red car, I have a testimony around that. My black car, I have a testimony around that. These are things that I wanted. Some of those things came just like that. A red flower pot, okay? Red flower pot, shiny flower pot. Things that came just like that. I just thought it up and God brought it to pass. Red car, it took me going through what I went through, getting here, and I ended up with it. And I had to think back, wait a minute. Oh my God, that's right. And it's not the used one, it's a new one. Thank you. So all in time. Don't rush the journey. Enjoy the process. Yeah. I can talk a lot now.
Girl, I'd like listen. You'll be back on this show. Trina, I enjoy you so much today.
Thank
And
you.
I for real, you're welcome. And we got that bond because we're classmates,
Yeah.
class 1986, Berkeley High School. But you are, as I told the other ladies the other day, a Navy SEAL in my book. You're a hero. And I want to applaud you before you go. Before we go, I do. And I just want all the other ladies that's watching today to reach out, and I hope you find hope and that you don't have to stay in
Right.
that position. You don't have to stay there. You don't have to take that. You don't have to stay there. And men, you don't have to take the abuse, but women, you don't have to take the abuse. And we're gonna have Katrina back on the show. Definitely, we're gonna have Katrina back on the show. And Katrina, I just pray God's continual blessing over you, His
Thank you.
hand over you. I pray that every door that you come to, that the Lord will open the doors He needs to open, that He'll close the ones behind you that He doesn't need, and that He keep a hedge of protection around you every day, you and your family. And
Thank you.
keep doing what you're doing. Keep telling people about the goodness of God and keep telling your story because your story is going to heal a lot of women.
Amen. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I love you, my friend.
Love you too.
Well, you've heard Katrina McGregor. She's been here on the Moral Compass with us. We will have her back. And to all of you, we'll see you next time. Have a wonderful Wednesday.